That's why I was late, because I was burying the 27 identities that died yesterday.
Cool.
But when I was on the street, I was telling Morgan, it was about this time period. So it would have been like literally, what, 9 years ago or 10 years ago. But I had been on the streets for, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks. And I had this episode where I think I came really close to a nervous breakdown. I was sleeping behind a building and everything just hit me. And I remember I called a friend, and there wasn't a whole lot she could do. And I didn't have a car, and, and I just didn't have any choices. But I remember the feeling. So the feeling I had yesterday was like that. I mean, it was just like curled up in a ball in a fetal position. I never thought I'd be there again. And I thought, I think I'm actually close to breaking. And then over time, I realized it was, the energy and everything else. And of course, the body, I got rashes all over my head and my face, and my skin's peeling off, and I'm purging. I've been juicing, very consistently since Sedona. And really, now I'm just on a juice diet with coconut water, regular water, organic tea that I put sparkling water in. And occasionally I bought some that lettuce leaves, like to make a lettuce sandwich with cucumber and beets. But yeah, so that's contributing a lot to the purging. I'm glad I've been doing it because, I'm talking very fast. But I think, my soul set that up so that I would be able to handle the energies. And even then it's just like, whew. So, but yeah, I had a show earlier today. I told her I can't do it. It's just, I haven't slept it's just been crazy. Although yesterday when this happened to me, I slept about 8 hours. I get up, and for 2-3 hours it's on me. And then I sleep 7 hours, and then I wake up and it happens again. And then I came out of it. But based on, maybe you need a good steak. I don't eat meat. I'm done. But anyway, so yeah, it's been, but based on the comments and messages I've received, and thank you everybody. Thank you very, very much. A lot of people, it is what it is. It's here. It's here. Literally. Yeah. So I don't know, the way I see it, the distortion, I just got through watching, Morgan sent me a video of a union lawyer and representative and firemen and so on are having a press conference because the Hawaii, I got to be careful because we got 2 strikes on YouTube. Right now, we're not even on YouTube. We're going to get back on the next day or two. But they took the David Icke interview off, which was a great interview. It was still available on Facebook because I did miss it on YouTube. But then because I went on and it said it was deleted. And I go, oh, shit. Oh, God, that's what happened. So I went on Facebook and it was still there. So I actually watched it on Facebook. Yeah. Yeah, we are on YouTube, but we can't post. So somebody said, but no, it was a great interview. It was actually, better than the first one. The first one was very good, but yeah, it was just weird. But we only talked about it for, it wasn't that big a deal. We weren't saying anything. But anyway, so it's just been interesting watching everything happen. But I think the distortion I was watching this thing in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. And it's a press conference from yesterday. And so the Hawaii governor mandates that if you're going to work for the state, you have to you have to get a jab. Right. So the union came out and said, hey, this is like, they're preempting the law basically. And so, but what was so amazing about it, there was a fire chief, there had been a fire chief for 20 years, and he started crying. And he gave the most incredible testimony, to include some statistics that I won't state right now because I don't want to get knocked off. In fact, part of the reason I was late because Facebook knocked me off again 3 times in 2 days. So something's going on, but I just feel like that the individual souls are expanding their abilities at warp speed, and the distortion will parallel that. I think it's going to be an interesting mix because we've talked about it before, but and it kind of puts you in a place. I want to come back to this because I want to ask you about something. I saw a video you did last night, but I want to come back to it in how do we, at this point, with the level of the level of whatever you want to call it, this force of distortion, how do we, do we take a stand? What do we do, But before we go there, I wanted to, last night I was doing my normal, hour routine of checking other platforms, seeing how, just picking stuff up. So I went to yours because I like to watch yours because I've been watching the growth,
Right.
and some of the shows that you put up that you're with other people. I was popping in on those because I was looking at the activity on the ones we do, and of course, it's a different kind of thing. So anyway, there's a lady that you have done 2 shows with, a little older lady.
Jackie White.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Very cool. I only watched about 15 minutes, which is 12 minutes longer than I watch any video typically, unless it's yours and I have time. So she started out the show, and we've talked about this, but you were talking in terms that I think we're breaking it down even more and applicable to today, which would be the difference from when we talked about it. And the subject was time. So she came on and she said, wow, time is doing some crazy stuff. And then she said something about, I think she got some intel or somebody told her that the 24-hour period is now basically 16 and a half hours. And then you said, well, actually it's about 12. And then you kind of started to break it down. And if you don't mind, I was wondering if you would just kind of revisit that, because I thought your explanation was really spot on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could do that for sure. Regarding just what you just shared in regards to your own personal experience and so forth, I mean, the whole thing about being homeless and whatever else. I mean, all of us right now are going through pretty powerful revisiting of sorts, having old memories, old, emotional imprints and things of that nature exposed. So we're just basically re-looking at it again. Like you said that you're going to have, I can't remember the word exactly used, but a crash or something of that nature from it. But it's not about that. It's just to push you right to that point so that it actually just kind of flows out of you. And this is what a lot of people are dealing with, because it's not only dealing with really, really strong stories, really, really strong emotions, a tremendous amount of fatigue, especially as we're birthing out and shedding or pushing out all of this stuff that's within ourselves, all of these lower energies and so forth. And then, of course, it lights up the new one. But as part of the changes and rewiring and everything else that goes on, it takes a lot of energy because the body's not accustomed to those new waveforms that are going in. So it's going to feel like you're completely drained and tired. And sometimes you may have to sleep a lot. Sometimes you're so wired up, but you're tired, but you're wired up to sleep. There's all types of things. So that's why some people can't sleep. And I've gone a couple of nights now, I've had practically none again. And some other times, I need a little more. But yeah, so a lot of that is coming up, and I'm dealing with it ourselves. I mean, just last night, I got a message from the landlord, the people that own the house that we're house sitting, that they finally decided they're going to move back from Rhode Island. So we have to leave, right? So now we're going, oh, this is great. The timing, of course, we felt that it was time to go because I've felt it for several months. And so did Kimberly, that, we're done here. But, nothing else was opening up. Resources were, below functionality. So you're basically running on the seat of your pants and below. So I'm going, well, I don't think, but something has to happen. Something has to kind of adjust. So, and I had a similar experience because when I went to bed last night, I'm going, okay, I tune in and I know it. And from a higher perspective, it's like, this is all perfect. It will all play out the way it needs to play out. Something else will open up or whatever. that'll align, because I've moved so many times, and every time that we get to this point, something, even to the last minute before we moved here, we were like 10 days away, from leaving there before we ended up having an opening here. So I know that, but this time it felt different. It felt like, oh shit. And it's not like quite yourself, like you had the experience of being homeless, but I'm looking at it going, okay, somehow I feel that there's not something to hop onto, because the scenarios are even a little bit more different than before, because the craziness here, there's no availability for anything right now, to look for anything. But I know that was really some old memories, old emotions, old stuff that from even as childhood, because even as a child with my family, we were bouncing around from place to place because there was never any money. We were just renting a room somewhere, and we're all cramped up and everything like that, and having food issues at times. And so some of that, even though I've processed that, I thought many years ago, I guess there must have been some residue, because there's some of that coming up to the surface now. I'm not panicking, but it's kind of feeling like, oh, here we go again, so. And that, by that coming in, then you also feel that you lose your juice. You feel tired. So today's been, a tiring day. But this is something that all of us are going to different degrees. We're having all types of things that are happening for us. And now, in our case too, is that the window that we have to do the transition is not that big, so we have to move very quickly. And of course, during this period of time, I've had some really intense health issues that have really intensified like crazy. And I'm going, oh, okay, now I can barely function, short time span, and resource less. And I'm going, okay, that's a perfect stage and scenario to purge any of this old stuff, because deep inside we all know we're powerful beings, we're in charge, we can create and shape every part of it. The nonsense we see, the craziness, those are offerings, those are just things that are playing out, but it's really up to us how engaged we get in. And this is the thing, many of us are invested in what we see on the external world as a reference of how well we're doing, how well things are going, if there's any hope or anything like that. But those are old, inverted 3D stuff, because the thing is, as long as we're looking at look at the old design around us and refer to that, then we're not creating anything brand new. We're not actually accessing that higher aspect of ourselves, which is what we are here to do in the first place. So when we get to that realization, that's what we're doing. Now, a question came up, and I didn't see it until after the episode I did, which plays with all of this right now that we're talking about. The question was about, if our brother, sister souls, our alien friends and so forth, have been so well looking after us and making sure that we don't nuke ourselves or destroy ourselves and so forth, why did they not step in for, say, this chaos that's happening right now, which is accentuating in a sense where there's going to be more shortages, there's going to be more of, unstableness and so forth that's going on. So with that, why are they not stepping in? Well, the reason for that, Todd, and this is for everybody, is that we are in a very different place. And what I mean by that is we are in a different place. We are in a different state of consciousness, even though we may not be accessing all of it, but we're accessing more and more of it. The energies of the planet is very different. We're not going to allow it. But at the same time, what we're allowing and what they're watching us and holding back from intervening is giving us, because we've asked as a collective, we want to be self-empowered. We want to see what we can do. We want to play with these polarities and then dissolve the polarities. But if it requires us to dive in and get lost in the polarity, we are okay with this, because we know we can turn off anything and everything. And there's so many examples all over the world, because look at how much pushing there is for certain passes, certain, you have to be jabbicated, you have to have this to be able to have freedom and whatever else. Look at how many people are stepping up and saying, no, we are not accepting this. And that message is so powerful that even the ones that are so asleep, that are just following it, are not able to deny it to the same degree, and are starting to question it, or at least back off to a certain level where they're not going to play out whatever, to that level of intensities. So that's kind of, part of what's going on right now, because one of the things I mentioned is that we're going to go through more intensities. From now, because right now we're in a very powerful wave that goes for another 5 or so days before something else.
Hey, we're back. Excuse me. We're back on YouTube.
Oh, cool.
I just saw it. Cool. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So what was I saying?
Well, you were just talking about, the distortion is going to get louder. I mean, look.
Yes. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, this is one of the things that has, because this month, like all of them, but this one's even faster. You see it all happening. Like you can see the trajectory. Now Morgan's in Australia, so I get to see that. And then over here, I scan things for information and I see what's happening here, and you can see it. And then you see the ladies in Italy that were burning, who got vaccinated, who were burning their their medical procedure ID card, and they were putting it in a fire, because even though they chose to get the medical procedure, they were standing up for the rights of those that did not. Mm-hmm. So you see all this stuff, and you go, okay, wow. And I see 2 saving graces. I watched Avatar last night. Morgan got a channel 2-3 nights ago, and they told her, watch Avatar again. This is exactly what's happening now. So I watched it last night, and I'm going, oh my God, this is like a convergence of this distortion. Like you say, these are our brothers, soul sisters, which they are, and they're going to see how far they can push us. Right. Mm-hmm. And I see what you're saying, because people are responding, and it's going to be interesting. That's all I can say. But like, what do you do? I mean, I remember writing, if you go to the Soulology group, the words that I wrote, which had to be channeled because I couldn't have, at that time, everything that's laid out in the summary of like the overview, when you set your page up, like what's this about? Mm-hmm. Everything has been beheld. Everything to the T, except one thing. It says spiritual activism. Mm. And I never understood why this hadn't come into play. Now, when I first started Soulology, I was spiritually active, and I was creating a charge, and I was making the monster bigger. So I backed away. But now I feel like there's something going on here. Now, does that mean we have to get out there and be verbal and I don't know. Can we just do it from the core of our universe, which is us, and manage our frequency? I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Absolutely no. See, everybody has the freedom to decide what role they want to play as part of the change. Sometimes people get confused with the fact that if I don't take action and, go out and rally or do something of that nature, or let people know that, I'm just standing by, whatever it is. But the thing is, you can be very powerful by just, in the sense of creating your own self-direction, and able to, in a way, hold your own energies and say no. Because when you're saying no, or you're choosing not to cooperate, not because you're rebelling, you're just saying, I have sovereign free will, and I choose not to support this. And in fact, I also allow or share this with all my brothers, sisters, souls on the planet, that we remind each other that we're all free, powerful beings, and we can make the choice. That is so powerful, because you're coming from a very empowered state. Your vibration is very high. Now, you can take action in the sense of saying, let's gather and make a statement, but you're not going to go, if you're going to go out with anger and you want to torch or basically judge the other role players, then you're going in with a fight mentality, fight energy. You're in a low vibration and you're just feeding them, because the moment you show up as that, then it comes, then you're going to have them rebel, and they actually get the right, they get permission. When you come out fighting, they get the permission to fight with you. But when you come out loving and saying, no, we are no longer supporting this, you are not giving them permission to fight.
Yeah.
And if they cross that barrier, they will automatically be pulled back by their own highest aspect, or what we can call the collective energies of whatever's going on there. So this is the thing, is that, when people ask, well, how do I do it? Well, you really have to be in a position to see, okay, this is a game. This is whatever's playing out right now. And I now see my new world looking this way. And this is what I start living with myself. This is what I share with others. This is what I emanate in all of not only my thoughts, my imagination, how I feel, and the excitement of being in a position to actually take charge of sorts. And now, if you feel like getting together with other people and creating a unified energy of peace and love, and also a statement that we are no longer supporting this, then yeah, you follow what you feel guided. So there's no real
it's an individual.
I'm not doing it right.
Okay, before we get off of this, God, I had it, and let me just say the sister that had the question about the walk-ins, I'll bring it up to him in a little bit. Okay, so we're back at this. Before we leave it, there was something I was going to ask you. Oh, okay, a couple things. It was like three things. One, you explained at the beginning the choice that we have all made collectively. Mm-hmm. So real quick, yes or no? That choice is all 8 million of us, or 8 billion of us, regardless of what role we're playing. Is that correct?
Yes. See, you have to understand, the active ones have made a choice to be kind of the leader, designer, be very active in it. The ones that are not the active ones, they're active in a different way. They're, what I call the extras. They're supporting the active ones. They're playing whatever role they require for us to be able to access that higher empowered state and to really step forward at this point. And so it's like we're of service for the whole, because we are part of the whole, because they're not outside of us. Right. Just because they have taken a role to be the support team rather than the front runner team. Right. That's the difference, So there's front runners for the 5D, organic 5D, and the front runners for the organic 3D that are out there. And then you have the so-called extra backup. The extras are the support for all of it, and they'll play whatever role they need to be. They kind of show up where they need to show up. And the one thing about the extras, they are very diligent in staying core to whatever role they have to play for you. And then they, if they don't have to play a role, then they're not going to be there, or they step aside, or whatever has to happen. So this is the thing. So when we look at it and say, yes, we've made an agreement and everybody's involved in the agreement. And any that are saying, I agree, but I'm not going to stick it out, then they can leave, and they will, and they choose to leave. And then, of course, there's so many other multidimensional soul and human entities. They're kind of waiting to kind of take on a role of one of the extras at some point. At this, as it becomes, okay, we need more role players to go, because a lot of the extras will play more of the old narrative as a polarity for us to become more empowered, but then more of them will join the other side. So they'll have more of those, the drop-ins coming in and take a more of an active role. Not all physicalities are going to end up that way, but there's going to be a certain amount of them that are going to be doing that. And with what I was saying before regarding after the 18th, I mean, and we're going into another waves of energies and other kind of stages. So what ends up happening is we tap into more resources of what is being streamed. So we're kind of upgrading, but that may also present other things. But what it will also illuminate the polarity too. So what I was going to say is that since the agreement was made for us to have pretty well everything possibly wrapped up in the old inverted world to the point it's no longer even being as a reference point by the end of 2022. And a lot of the systems are all built on that inverted matrix and the inverted 3D, inverted 2D, because if you look at all the education medical system, the governmental system, military system, police system, all of these systems that are out there, religions and so forth, are all built on that structure, the old structure. So as the energies increase, as we are taking more of an active role, as we become more of our truer self, those structures will become even more unstable. But there's going to be a little bit of fight back of sorts, kind of so that we actually say, thank you, but no thank you. And we're not going to support it. So this is the thing. And I know some people said, well, oh, why are we, allowed to go into these higher intensities with potential food shortages, potential whatever? Those are just potentials. What we roll out and don't roll out will depend on what we need.
Yeah.
Because if we don't need it, we don't have to. We're not slaves. We're not victims. We never were, but now we are realizing that we're not a victim to this, to the state, right, to the countries, to the leaders, the fake, whatever you want to call it, authorities and deities and whatever else. We are not slaves. We never were. We just bought into the idea that we were. And this is the thing. So when we look at the big picture that we are being pushed and said, if you don't do this, you can't do that. Yeah, the thing is, it's going to look like you're in more of a restricted state, but it's only just compressing us to a point and finally says, hey, wait a minute here, that's it. I'm not doing this anymore. And you press out. Like you see it in our own lives. How many times have we've had people that kind of tell us what to do or whatever? It could be from parents, family, whatever, or, systems and so forth, or even jobs or careers, whatever it is. And you get to a point and say, that's it. I'm not interested. I'm out of here, and it doesn't matter. It does not matter where it's going next or what's going to happen or anything of that nature. You don't care, and it's not, this whole thing about people too going into survival, right? Survival is victimhood. Survival is not our true nature. We're really, we're burning off the rest of this idea that we're in survival. Like, for example, and I've said this for a couple of decades now, but I think people more appreciate it now because they have a deeper understanding. We're in it together. So imagine the government, imagine the industries, all of these groups of people that turn around and says, no, we're going to cut off all the food chains. We're not going to distribute food. We're not going to grow food, whatever it is. What's going to happen? You're going to say, well, okay, the rich, they're going to have some little supply or whatever it is. But look at the masses. They're going to look at this and say, who gave them the right? In fact, I gave an analogy years ago that, okay, even if everybody turns off the switches to the factories and to the farms and whatever else, people are going to get to a point, they're going to feel, oh my God, what are we going to do? Wait a minute. We don't need any permission. We'll go turn the switches back on. We'll go work. Because if we produce stuff that's actually going to help others, it helps us. Because you have to understand, we're the ones that decide. It's not who's on top that says, they can say whatever they say. It's up to us to believe it or not, and to execute it or not. It's like what you're seeing now. It's like you need this to go and do that. Like hell, right? Go away. We're not interested. So even if they start firing a bunch of people, what's going to happen?
Yeah. No, it's
They're going
not
to lose
gonna.
some good staff, and they're going to find out, oh, my sister-in-law. That's exactly what happened. She didn't want to get, jobicated, lost her job. They called her back after a while because they needed somebody really good, and she was good. And it's like,
Mm,
okay, we'll make the exemption. Don't worry about it, type of thing. And it's offered, but it's for us to say, hey, I don't care. You can threaten me or do whatever. I'm fine with that. But then you realize when you're in that state, you made a very powerful statement and you now started to shift everything. And they
yeah.
just back off because they know. And I know I'm providing some of the 3D part, but at the same time, from a higher perspective, it's like it's for you to get rock solid to be true to yourself is where we're going.
Yep.
And that's what we're doing.
So let me just get something affirmed because you kind of mentioned it a while ago, and we talked about it before. If an individual is choosing themselves in alignment, in the Trinity energy, serving others, serving the universe, serving themselves in equal measure with their thought, word, or action. Whether that scenario is, let's say, an individual relationship or a family issue or work issue, or that issue is a collective type of issue, such as this situation with the COVID. Certainly, you're not going to knock us off for saying COVID, but is the energetic impact, or is it not, one and the same? Does it really matter where the individual is expressing and aligning and claiming their sovereignty, whether it has to do with an interaction with the government or it has an interaction with an individual? When they choose themselves, when they elevate themselves, it really doesn't matter, or does it, what they're dealing with? Because I would think that the energetic impact of their soul choice in alignment is going to have an equal measure type of impact, whether it's collective or individual. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. The thing is, it's your own free decision, will, whatever you want to call it, your self-empowerment is through everything, every choice, even with your ego.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So it's going to be with friends, it's going to be with family, it's going to be with people that you deal with, work, whatever it is, government, you name it. You make the decision. This is what I choose, and this is the direction I'm going to go, and nothing else matters at this point. Because what ends up happening, we give ourselves away. We've been conditioned to give ourselves away to not either appease people or feel that that's the right thing to do, or that, or anything of that nature. But that applies across the board. And like, that's the reason I threw the ego, because the ego is going to be one of your, compartes, or whatever you want to call it, that are going to keep saying, oh, we got to do this, we got to do that, or they're not going to like you anymore, or love you anymore, or you're not going to have this or that, whatever. And you now have to stay true to yourself and say, yeah, thank you, but I'm not interested, because I'm staying true, and this is what feels most in resonance, and this is what the steps I'm going to take. And you stay tuned with that, because you're going to always shift things along the way, but you stay true to yourself. Not to addictions, not to stories that you have that the ego likes to throw out, or the past idea of what was or wasn't, or anything of that nature. It will not regard any of that. And this is what the other part that we're doing is, because as long as we're enslaved illusionarily with the system, that's one thing. But how many of us are enslaved by our own ego?
Absolutely.
Our own software.
It's the co-conspirator.
Yeah. It's got the inside scoop, because it knows everything you've done. So it will dig your archives, so you throw it in your face, sort of thing.
Yeah. And anyone that doesn't think they have a narcissistic frequency running in their body doesn't understand the ego. That is it, basically. Exactly. So also, I just want to get a little clarification. I know the answers, but I just want to make sure everybody gets it clear. Just real quick, going back to the institutions, we're talking about and just correct me if I'm wrong, we're talking about a collective transformation, a collective movement, elevation, whatever you want to call it. And then whether they split, there's a split or what, that's not the point. The point is there's a space being created that it's a higher frequency. And as a result of that, these institutions you're talking about, they're subjected to the same thing an individual is, and they're going to have to shift or get off the pot, which based on the way that they're founded upon duality, I guess what I'm saying is this thing keeps heading the way it is, which seems to be what it's been doing for 10 plus years. These things are going to self-destruct no matter what anybody tries to do to save them.
Well, yes, exactly. And the thing is, even though it's pushing fear and whatever else to kind of keep people in that state to kind of be the energy for it, but you'll notice that they're being very unstable, reactive, even those role players. Like, they're so incoherent. They're also saying such nonsense, such flip-flopping, you name it. It doesn't matter if they're medical authority, if they're, economist or whatever it is, because they know they have really, at this point in time, from that inside, that they're just trying to create smoke and mirrors, but they're no longer able to do it to the same point. This is why, look at the people that are in charge. Look at the colors of, and when I say colors, the way they're acting, the way they're communicating, the inconsistency, instability, the nonsense, the blatant craziness. It's like, and then even when they were talking about the social media, what do you think all of this restriction that they're putting in and the censoring and so forth is doing? It's forcing people to awaken. It's like, look at it this way. Just let me give you a simple analogy. If your mother said to you as a kid, don't go do that, okay? Or I'm going to take that thing away from you, you're going to want it more. You're going to say, oh, I'm going to sneak around and I'm going to find out. So guess what? If they're censoring and they're blocking and this and that, and they're going to go, okay, at first, if you're really lost in the game and say, well, okay, yeah, it's what do they call it? Fake news or, disinformation, whatever you want to call it. But then people are going to go, but I want to find out. I want to know. And then they start doing more research. They start to ask others. They start to question things. So in fact, the flip side is they're assisting more people to kind of wake up of sorts, and realize all of that. Because we have to understand, the role players have taken on that role, but they don't want to stay there because, first of all, it's very uncomfortable. It does not matter how much illusionary power they may think they have, they're uncomfortable with it. They can't even sleep with it, in a sense. It doesn't matter how much money they have, they can't feel comfortable. Why? Because they feel out of sync. They also notice they're not supported in the same way. They're also noticing that they're in hiding all the time because they're going to be discovered or whatever it is. But the thing is, they know, and they're actually waiting. How many times does somebody do something and they say, well, I just hope somebody figures it out so I don't, I don't have
like when they catch a serial criminal and or someone that's hiding something and you can see the relief. What were you just saying? Oh, yeah. Another thing, too, is and I was going to say, too, another thing I saw out there is they're throwing each other under the bus, which is kind of interesting. But the contradictions that you're talking about are so apparent. I mean, I saw one yesterday where I saw contemporary platforms last year get deplatformed for saying the exact same fucking thing that the CDC came out and said yesterday.
Yep.
So there's all this back and forth. I wanted to ask you too, just for some clarification, because this I'm not clear on. I don't quite understand it. I understand that these playgrounds and universities, these realms that we have in the universe, are a part of the universe. Otherwise, these things that can occur of, say, a catastrophic
Mhm.
sense, they wouldn't be a threat. Like, for instance, a nuclear bomb, right? That wouldn't be a threat if this was just a dream, right? I mean, and I know it's not so easy for the human mind to comprehend everything, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, you mentioned in the beginning, I've heard it before, it's all over if you research, silos being shut down and bombs being exploded midair by our brother, sister, galactic souls. So in this case that you mentioned, which I think is pretty well documented, they're not going to allow us, and haven't since probably the 40s of last century, they're not going to allow us. If we want to blow up ourselves, that's one thing, but obviously this has repercussions throughout the universe because of the web. Now, you then said, and so I get that. So they have, for all intents and purposes, interfered.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what is the difference, or is the only difference between that scenario and intervention in this scenario the fact that we have chosen to do it on our own?
Well, the difference is that we're more capable, more aware, and more observant to, because we were so much in the unconscious state. Let's call it that unconscious state before. We wouldn't even realize what would be an outcome of exterminating humanity. And that whole thing, because of where we're connected. I mean, we're the hub of our quadrant of the galaxy, right? So whatever happens here is very much reflected. But now we have the capability to be able to navigate. Now, that does not mean they don't have their hands on the pulse. They're just not. They're still reduced. Like, for example, when this so-called C thing came out, they intervened, because when it was released, it was going to be tremendously more devastating. So what they ended up doing was to dwarf it to the point it was less than just a common flu. Okay? So now they had to step into the second phase, which was now, let's create a fake version of a pandemic and milk that to the hilt and see how far we can push people so that we can have the people at this point in time. Because if there was going to be a lot of mass exodus at that point, people weren't ready enough to understand, and they would have kind of got caught up in the whirlwind. Now it's even though we're not 100% ready for that, but we're getting more ready for that. So there was that intervention. They've also said a month or two ago, I think it's almost 2 months ago, that even with these jabs, as much as they're not intervening at the moment to the degree, they are going to take some measures later on once it's served its purpose to turn off a lot of the so-called long-term damages that were. So they're allowing the shorter version stuff to happen because that's the part of the awakening. But the long-term, because I'll say this, we do the choice we made is not to contaminate too far the human operating system.
Right.
So that is designed to be able to contaminate it enough that we are no longer able to maintain enough of the original design that was able to carry the consciousness and be able to function in the way it was. So that part will not be allowed. And that was an agreement we made, but we've also said, monitor, but don't jump in too much because we want to get our own capacity to move forward.
And that sounds right. I remember my dad supposedly when I got my first car at 15, teaching me how to change the oil. Well, after the third oil change, I never touched a wrench. And I said, can I do it? So I can see where this is this is our position. So I want, evidently, and I haven't seen it, Jason, who we collaborated with, Jason Estes at Soulgy Fest, he just came out with some stuff, which again falls in line with your stuff, which, maybe not the same language, but the timeline. And so we'll get to that in a second, because I've seen about 5 different comments on it. I wanted to ask you something else too. First, let me go back to what you were saying, because I like everybody, I'm getting massive downloads, and one of them that was kind of interesting was this. So they were basically showing me how, as in, let's say it's me, and I have a field of energy, that there was like a fence put around the person, and that fence was synthetic, and that fence could be described as, I don't know, I guess you could describe it as the path of transhumanism. You could describe it as chemtrail metals. You could GMOs, fluoride. In other words, something to the effect that this field, that the atmosphere was altered with the intention of making it easier for those things that would be more inclined to be an opposing force to have access to us. Now, I don't think this was like some type of prophecy. I think it was more like an explanation of how things work. But I started to look at that. Okay, well, if that's an individual, then it would have to be the same for the earth. And I know we've talked about the quarantine of the earth was removed, and there's a lot of, but the reason I bring that up is because I just wanted to see what your thoughts were, because it still looks to me, no matter what, and this isn't hope, because I don't believe in hope, but I mean, it looks to me like we're all being pushed to walk the talk, and that any and all threats are just simply perceived. And it's whatever it is pushing us to claiming our power, something like that. But whether it happens that way or however that works scientifically or from your angle, regardless of what it looks like, I guess what I'm saying, regardless of whatever is presented, the momentum's with us. We're a snowball that's getting bigger. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And it's personal and collective. So the field defense that you're talking about is kind of an energetic field that allows only a certain amount of interference or anything through, and not to be enough to, in one way or another, to totally dwarf us so that we don't get to continue to move forward. And that's happening for the planet, because there's been some pretty so-called low vibration intense stuff that was wanting to really like take over the planet, just wipe everybody out. And when I say wipe them out, I'm talking about wipe them from their access points. So making them all into slaves, or whatever you want to call it, as just kind of used as toys of sorts, right? But the collective had agreed, no, we're not doing that. But that collective was the collective within the galaxy that had the final, the grander say, saying no. So that's why they've created that field. And now certain individuals, what's happening, because they've taken on a certain role, they are kind of stepping forward in a big way, in not only energetically, but also in a very powerful way, to kind of offset everything that's going on, and they become an easy target. So some of the technologies that are being targeted to them, at times the team that works with them, or the overseers and so forth, they're kind of just making sure that they don't get, there's not too much going to affect them. Then they will filter that out. So that would be the individual kind of shield. So it's enough to realize what's going on and become more empowered, but not enough to wipe you out or enough to crash you. Like in a situation where you have some old stuff coming up, because there is projections going on. projections. It's illusionary projection. There's a thought forms. They're shaped a certain way and whatever else. So it may push us to a certain point within ourselves to have some old story program come up, but at the same time, it's also activating that higher, what we call that higher aspect of yourself, and saying, oh yeah, that's just my old stuff. And then the moment you recognize it and you thank it and love it and let it go, it kind of moves out of the way. Because the thing is, it's no longer sticky or being held by you. So, and then of course we have a lot of our brother sister souls in large ships and so forth that are, going around the planet, kind of keeping an eye, monitoring the areas and so forth. Wherever they have to uplift the energy because it goes too low or something, they do that. If there's going to be enough surge of something there that's going to be very low energy, then it intervenes in that regard. But with always permission, okay? And it's also monitored because we provide feedback. What can we take? It's like somebody giving you a load to put on your shoulders. And as they're as the load is coming on, you're being asked, okay, can you handle it? I don't want you to strain yourself. Can you do this? And you say, oh, just a little more. And okay, that's enough, right? And so that's kind of the thing. So when they see the area, whatever it is, it's like enough. Because one of the things I've shared over the years, and I'm sure other people have talked about it, is that one of the reasons that the stuff wasn't able to launch too far too fast is because what would happen is, depending on the state of humanity of people in their operating system, if too much say opposite, dark, whatever you want to call it, comes in, it would lower everybody's frequency to the point where the recovery would be slow, and it would actually slow down the progress. So the intent is push enough to bring up what needs to be let go, enough to activate self-empowerment, enough to purge slavery and victimhood and disempowerment sort of thing, enough to do that. And if there is a slight drop in frequency, not to the mass. So you will also notice, this is one of the things I want to mention, because we're interconnected throughout the whole planet, not the whole planet goes to the same low frequency at once. Because what happens, each area is holding space for the rest of it. So you'll notice it's going to go up and down, but you're going to have certain, like for example, in Sweden and whatever was going on there, when all this stuff came up, they didn't want any part of it, right? They would then go into the restrictions and masking and all that stuff, and they were holding a space energetically as a possibility and so forth. Even though that not everybody was following that, but it was already an example being set there. And then there was other parts of the world that didn't even pay attention to it at all. There's no coverage whatsoever. And then some others went even deeper. So you can see that. And then, of course, there's certain individuals scattered all over the world and in smaller groups that actually are even higher consciousness, kind of reflect the fifth and sixth, and some even up to a 7-dimensional consciousness and frequency. And those are all anchor points that actually kind of create a base, a supportive base. So it's very different than before, because had what we're going through now rolled out, say 5 years ago, or even before 2012, or at that time, it would have been a whole different outcome. You wouldn't have as many people standing up and doing what they're doing. You wouldn't have half of the percentage of the people in the world saying, no deal, we're not going here, we're not going there, we're not going to get jobicated.
Is that the percentage, you think? Do you know? Or
what's that?
Is that the percentage, do you think? Like 50%?
It's close to, it's over 60 actually. If you're talking globally.
Yeah, I'm talking global. As far as have not taken a medical procedure.
Yeah, and that medical procedure, or even will even agree to at this point.
Oh, so this is actually coming from your connection, that information.
Yeah, but yes, from surveying the
Yeah.
public, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the whole area, and even countries, they say, oh, they're this what do they call it? Disadvantaged because of the fact that they're not getting, the medicalized, jabicated serum to them and so forth. Well, the reason they're not going there is because they're not choosing to participate at that point in time. So it's not going to go there. And you're noticing that as much as it's being pushed and pushed and pushed, and a carrot is dangled, there's still people that are saying no, no, no. And then some of them will just do it for their family. For example, they'll take it and then they'll have a negative reaction, and it will create another stream where people say, oh, you kidding me? I'm not going to do that for sure then. And it just reinforces that. So there's a lot going on. It's so many viewpoints and spins that are happening to do that. But when you really look at the whole picture, Todd, it's all about, yes, getting rid of all the stuff that we have within ourselves, but it's really becoming disempowered, realizing that we have free will, realizing that we have our sovereign being, and realizing that we are the ones in charge. We're the ones that actually design our reality personally, extensively, and collectively. It's not anybody. So people are realizing that the so-called authorities are not real. The so-called, experts are not so, because even the experts that are being highly platformized, put on the pedestal as the one that knows everything. Look at it. Look at how they flip-flop with their stories all over the place, that there's nothing to back up, smoking sweet. Why?
You're talking about Dr. Fucky, right? I'm sorry. What's his name?
Yeah.
Oh,
You said it right. I like it. All of that is for that reason, so that we realize and say, why am I listening to this when I should be listening to myself, or actually do some research? Because really, what is the research about? Is it to get more facts, or is it to kind of confirm what you already know? That's what it's about. Our conversation is not telling anybody anything.
Right.
It's just confirming what people already know with them, to stimulate what they already know, or kind of to activate their own knowing. That's all. That's what it's about. So, I say what I say, you say what you say, all these other people that come on your platform and all over the place, they're saying what they're saying. But the thing is, we're not the authorities. We're sharing our observation because maybe we've, are seeing certain things and we're more vocal about it. But then we're the ones that actually go, all the people are listening to it and go, yeah, that makes sense. Why does it make sense? Because you know it. It's already in you. And these new, like I think Jason calls it, data points and all this stuff coming in. Well, this is basically higher consciousness just coming in, so that you're actually processing more knowing, more understanding of the reality of creation, of how things work. And really, it actually encodes us to a point where we're actually coming back into that truer state of ourselves. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. And sometimes, I guess, and it's all the individuals, something has to be said. I love this example with our friend Heather Nielsen. So she posted yesterday relating to the children and the medical procedure. And then she wasn't prepared, so she wasn't prepared for the ridicule. 11 people unfriend her and gives up a couple of relatives. I mean, isn't that the kind of action of sovereignty? Not to say that everyone has to speak it. I'm not saying that. But isn't that the energy that we're basically aligning with? These little, again, going back to the little interactions that we have. I mean, we don't have to take on the world, I guess is what I'm saying.
No, exactly. Yeah. So the thing is, look at the stage. And thank you, Heather, for that. Look at the stage that's set. You're getting people that, unfriend you. You got people that may call you crazy, whatever it is. Or, you may have people that don't want to talk to you anymore, whatever that may be, or the pressure that's coming to you. What is it doing? It's actually making you stronger. It's coming to the point where you say, it does not matter if you don't want to play with me. I'm still me, and I choose to be me. I choose to be true to myself. And that is such a freaking powerful statement. Energetic. It's like a freaking hurricane, not of destruction, but of destabilizing everything that is old and those old patterns. The point is and the thing is too, like even in conversations, I find that where you get more headspace and more headway is not going to people and saying, hey, yeah, this stuff is fake. And if you get that, you're going to have this and so forth. People put up their shield and whatever else. But if you're going in saying, when they ask you or say something of that nature and say, well, I understand where you're at. And, there's a lot of people that agree with you and so forth. And in a way, I could agree with you too. But I've been observing and I've been noticing, and I'm the type of person that questions things and likes to understand all sides of it. I'm not just going to take what I hear from one source, and it doesn't matter if it's coming from the same 10,000 people that are saying the same source. It has to feel good to me. It has to feel in a way where I agree with it. And, they go, oh, really? And you don't, it doesn't make sense to you or something of that nature? I go, well, to me, it's not making sense. And I may be wrong, but at the same time, and it's just part of the play. I may be wrong, but at the same time, that makes a heck of a lot more sense to me. And when I look at things and I look at some of the insights I've been getting and some of the feedback I've been getting, this is kind of where I feel more comfortable with. You're not going to have people, oh, that's an interesting perspective. They're going to ask you more questions rather than saying, oh, you're one of these conspiracy theorists or you're one of these anti-vaxxers or whatever it is, No, it's not about that. Are you, like even when somebody said to me, are you going to get vaxxed? I go, well, looking at everything that I've noticed, it doesn't make any sense to me and I have no interest in it. And that's all, right? Oh, and then that's it. I'm not saying, oh, this is crazy. Are you kidding me? They're going to, whatever, right? And then if they ask a little bit more, I say, I look at all sides. I take, my time to research, but I use my biggest guide, and that's me inside. Right. And if something feels off, I don't jump in. Just because anybody else said, I am who I am today because I didn't listen to others.
Right.
And this is not, I'm not kidding that. If I listen to my parents, if I listen to my family, if I listen to teachers and also extended people over the years, I wouldn't be who I am.
That's right. None of us would.
No, exactly. It's when you choose to be true to yourself, and it doesn't matter what anybody says. If it doesn't align with you, and if it doesn't feel totally coherent or in a sense where it makes sense with you, then you follow that. Because look at what happens, Todd. The moment you agree to go a certain way, but you don't really resonate with it, you just gave your power away.
That's acquiescence.
Yes.
Doing something that you're not. And somebody else just put up another great comment, how they're being, they're being ostracized by family and such. And looking at it, thank you for the comment. I'm sorry, because the comment's already gone. I don't know who said it, but so I just watched this thing. You've got a 20-year fire chief. You've got some people that are sensible. You can just see it. The press is there, the local news. This is big time Honolulu. And I saw a couple of things that were really interesting. One, a quick anecdote about a young man who wanted to pursue a wrestling career and about to go to college, went to his parents and said, I wanted to have a medical procedure, and he ends up in the morgue the next day. Another figure they threw out was 45,000 people who had the medical procedure passed in 3 days. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that I haven't checked them out. But these are union leaders, and you know what I mean. I mean, they've got a stake in the community, and so on and so on. And they express their dedication as first responders, and how they leave their home, and they don't know if they're going to come back. Now, my point is this: I try to remind myself, and maybe there's something I'm missing, and I'd like to know what your thoughts are. So you have this supposed threat, and the threat has 4 or 5 different faces on this subject, but to me, the number one threat, I would think, because when I watched that thing, I came off and said, "Oh, I'm gonna put up a post now. I'm fixing it. I know I can feel it. I can feel there's going to be. It's almost like you can't sit on the fence kind of thing." Mm-hmm. But at the same time, my soul's going, "Dude, just chill out. Chill out for a second." But I just try to remind myself that the biggest threat, and correct me if I'm wrong or add to it, is simply these things being presented to divide us. So if that's the case, and we are more inclined to thine own self be true, this group, what do we do? And then, of course, if any of that, you can add anything or subtract anything from what I said in regard to what's the biggest threat.
Well, there is no threat.
I know.
Everything is an opportunity. First, the divide creates a new opportunity for a new level of unity. Mm-hmm. Okay? The divide is, in fact, allowing people to make a choice where they are most wanting to play so that they actually grow in those spaces. And once that has served the purpose for everyone, then there's a unification that comes back. So the divide actually, it's like this. Let's take sides so that we can play with the sides until we're done playing with the sides, and then we come together, type of thing. So, like the example that you were saying there, that somebody had posted, the people will disassociate with you, don't want to associate with you anymore, or anything of that nature. It's great because, in a sense, it's like, okay, now who do I have? I have myself. I have other maybe like-minded people. So let me work on myself, on my craft, get myself rock solid, and then I'm open if they want to come back. But at that point in time, I'm not going to be easily swayed because I am rock solid now. Yeah. Okay, so that's the thing. It's about getting true and rock solid to you, and then you're able to play with anything and everything. Yeah, it's just the way we've designed it. There's no better way of doing it right now because that's what we've chosen to kind of play. So when we see this great divide, and even if it's divided to the point, we realize that we are not here to play divided. We are here to unite, and that pull will get really strong. So because divided, you may not flourish the same way because you're going to get caught up in whatever side that you're on or whatever. That's right. This is why they have these gender divides and so on. Look at what's happening with some of those gender divides and race divides and stuff like that. The people that are, been objectified and so forth, saying, that they've been treated a certain way. They're the ones that now are starting to stand up and we say, wait a minute, what are you talking about? This is bullshit. We're not accepting that. I'm on the side that they're telling, saying that, I'm misfortunate and whatever. Who the hell says that? No, we have equal rights. We have equal capacities and everything else because it's just bringing the truth because that's the way it is. We're all the same. We're all equal in every aspect. It doesn't matter the skin color, the slant of your eyes, where you're born, what gender you're in, or anything of that nature. It doesn't matter. Those are all projections, and those projections we get to play with it until you finally say, "Hey, wait a minute, we don't need this bullshit anymore. We're done with that." And then all of a sudden, we notice, because remember, as children, we didn't know. look at race or color or anything like that. A friend is a friend. A playmate's a playmate. Who cares? It's like, hey, he's running around, she's running around. Let me play. We're going to go on the slide. We're going to go do this. We're going to pretend. We're going to do whatever. They're not going to look at it and say, oh, well, you're this or you're that. It's not later on where they start to get conditioned and then they are kind of taught that there's a difference. But as young children, they don't see any difference. They see opportunity to play. And that's the divide does. And then we say, oh, we're going to play together. So the point is, if people are starving because we've tripped on or stopped the food supply, it's going to go all over the place and say, what are we doing here? Let's all unify here. Let's all do our part. Let's provide for everybody.
Yeah.
Because we benefit, everybody benefits. You're going to realize that's the realization that we're staging ourselves to be able to do.
Yeah. Evidently, Jason, well, you mentioned the 18th, and evidently Jason just did a broadcast or whatever, and he's talking about 5 days, which is the 18th. Evidently, he said that there's going to be a substantial number of walk-ins on or before then. Now, you don't have to go to any of that. I'm just giving you a little background, and I'm not up to date on your intel, but what is the 18th? You made some comments about the energies being different from that point. We also have another friend who's pretty connected, Yvonne, down in Tasmania, Australia, and she's been a regular for quite some time. And she had mentioned through her visions the 20th. What do you see going on? What's happening? The 18th.
Coming to the 18th is the end of this phase that started about the middle of July.
That's right.
Yeah. Yes. So, but then we are getting into another one, which will start around the 20th, start to climb up on the 21st and on. But as to referring to what you said, Jason had mentioned about more drop-in souls. There are, I don't like to call it an army, but there is a cluster of different souls that are uniquely holding high vibrations because they are gone through certain channels of experience and ready to come in to kind of step in and add an extra pulse to the energies. And some would be replacing other souls that are already in bodies that are saying, okay, we'll leave. Some will take the extras. So some will take the extras that don't have one already, that are just off the main operating system and the collective. And others will be because there are souls that said, okay, I'm done. I did everything I came here to do, and now I want to go. So another one could step in. So there are higher vibrational souls carrying higher consciousness and higher frequencies that are going to be seeded, and I'm going to say that in words, that are going to drop in as walk-ins, or whatever you want to call it. You call them drop-ins, walk-ins, whatever. They're one and the same. And then they'll take an active role. Now, as far as I know, some of them are going to take key roles in some of the positions in government and whatever else. Not overall right away, but in certain spots. Yeah. They already start to create openings and changes within it. So it will create even more instability, and then an opening for higher, because as far as I know, the intent was, and there's been a few changes that's just recently that's happened, that there's some other changes coming about that are looking at bringing to another level coming into the new year. So the period from now to the end of December, there are some specific things that want to be achieved prior to that, because One of the things they've mentioned to me is that they wanted to have some more key role players with higher consciousness put in unique positions to be able to start creating a bridging effect from the old to the new.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Really
So
does.
that's kind of, and I know they mentioned to me that they were going to be doing that in September. Uh, I don't see right now that they're going to push it to the same degree as they originally intended. And
Which
it may,
was.
well, they were going to have a huger influx
Oh, I
coming
got you.
in. Okay. Um, Much more disturbing of sorts. Like when I say disturbing, disrupting the old, right? I'm not saying in a bad way.
Disturbing as upsetting. Yeah.
Yeah, disturbing the old
Yeah.
way of that exists right now. So kind of shake it up of sorts. But there's been, believe it or not, there's been a lot of souls that are saying we're still working on getting empowered and keep helping us become self-empowered. So some of the original rollouts are slowing down just a little bit of time right now. So I think from what I've seen is that it's going to be rolled out till the end of the year rather than having a major.
And what you're describing, not so people don't get confused, isn't like a big event. We were just talking about the evolution of the transition and this seeding that you're talking about in influential positions, so that the deconstruction, bridge, and reconstruction can take place. Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
And what's going to be interesting, and this is something to pay attention, this is what I've kind of gotten as insight with, was the fact that some of the so-called role players that are in positions right now, they will be embodying some of these higher
That makes sense.
souls.
Yeah.
So that you'll notice a big difference. It's like, whoa, what happened to them? Yeah. They just kind of woke up.
That'll be powerful in itself, because if we have somebody who, let's just say, is part of the establishment that's been going the way that they're told to go, and then all of a sudden does a 180, and then is joined by another, and I'm not talking like, I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, if it's somebody who's people are aware of, household name, whatever, regional name, it would make sense, and that would make a lot of sense. I was wondering when there would be a more explicit representation or manifestation in the collective as a result of what's occurred with the individuals, so many individuals doing the work and raising their frequency. So that makes more sense to me than some of the stuff that that I've kind of played with. This feels right. And certainly feels right in terms of the cyclical aspect of the year. As we look back if I look back at the last 3 or 4 years, how everything kind of carries the same energies, depending, at the appropriate time of year compared to the previous years. And so that makes a lot of sense, because it's almost like what we need to prepare for next year. Like let it be seeded, let it saturate, let it be seeded, let it saturate, and then move into the next
and then
amusement ride.
Yeah, and the one thing I want to mention is, because I know people are so hooked up on the idea of knowing exactly when it's going to happen, what's going to happen. I mean, things are moving more than ever in regards to how far and what is delayed, what is moved forward. Some things have been moved up forward a lot faster. Other things have been delayed. I know. So we can't say, well, that's why I say the intention is from a collective to get to this point by this time. That's the intention. Sometimes it happens faster, and a lot of times it could be a little longer. So the cutoff points that have been established are, it's like a project. You're going to build a house.
Mm-hmm.
I want it finished by this date, and then depending on the workers or whatever delays, and sometimes everything rolls real fast. So this is the thing, is we don't have a fixed timeline. We do not have a saying, well, this is it, and that's that. You know, even when we've said that this is the cutoff point, sometimes there are, you know, circumstances that come around and they'll say, okay, can we extend it or move it this way or whatever it is, right? Because even this so-called, you know, pandemic, whatever you want to call it, was optional. But it felt, the collective felt that it was a good wake-up opportunity and a good way to push everybody and, you know, roll out this whole idea that it's, you know, that we're slaves or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, we'll let it roll out, you know. So this is this is the thing that we have to understand, that we are not flying by the seat of our pants, but we're taking steps, monitoring, taking steps. What do we plug in? What don't we plug in? And then we notice certain things are not going quite the way because there's too many factors we're playing in, and so we're constantly adjusting. I know I've gone through my own frustrations over the years, because, you know, you get times and whatever else, and you're seeing it coming in, but it doesn't show up as fast and so forth. And it's like, oh, really? And I know when you know, the 2012 rolled out and everything else, and, you know, having certain things achieved by 2017 and so forth, and it's like, okay, well, that's still 5 years, but okay, that's okay, you know, and it's going, and then I'm getting feedback after a little while. It's saying, okay, there's too much feedback saying that we need a little bit more time and so forth. So it gets delayed and moved around and adjusted and whatever else. So now then it starts going into 2020 and then 2021. We're on track. It's just that the progress we wanted to make by a certain time frame may have not played out exactly. But again, it's not enough to, and I know when it was introduced back in, what was it, 2019 going into 2020, it was like, ready or not, we're going, and we're not gonna extend it any further. And that's how a bunch of other things rolled out for us to be at where we are now. And then, of course, we've speeded a lot of things up in a huge way. So things are moving a lot faster in a powerful way in that regards. So we kind of have to be flexible with this, but really it's us collectively, especially within our own realities, that navigate, because it's so easy to get stuck in the idea that I have to wait for certain things to play out. I have to wait for the next wave. I got to, you know, oh, by then, okay, the world's going to be good and I can be happy. I can be whatever. That's what delays things. It's about taking active measures, working on things that you have tangible with yourself to unpack that new world within you and project that throughout wherever you're going. That's the progress. That's how it's going to speed up.
That's right.
By just saying, okay, Franco or Jason or this guy or that person saying
it's
that
going to happen on this day.
Yeah. You know,
hey, everybody's still got to row their own boat. Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, yeah, that's a great point. I want to make sure that I was going to say something too, because it's interesting. We're mostly, you know, all of us, I'm talking about this crowd, spend some time in social media in these communities. And it's always interesting to see what's happening. You know, we get a lot of good information from there, good code, and also good examples of people showing their ass, including me. But my point is that I would think that, just to kind of sum that part of it up, that this other part of it is that the deconstruction of duality, basically, you know, the integration of polarities, part of the characteristic of that is not only these institutions that are going to be crumbling because they're based in duality, but also what we see in our own communities in the form of people, groups, and processes and such. And I think that's, for me, that's a really good place to go and ground, because I go through a little exercise and I go, okay, so and so and I had this thing and whatever, and I'm like, I'm good now. And I look at the other side, when this is over, and me and that person, you know, being what we truly are to each other, one and the same. But I also think the same of the Bill Gates and the Clintons and whoever else has been the big bad wolf, right? And so it's kind of helped me to look at the community and find the same face as you see in this dark and dirty world over here. It's just energy. It's the same thing. And I think to summarize, conclude it, what you said is really where the rubber meets the road. Hey, we can talk about this stuff all day long, but it's really about you and me and what we do within our own field that we can control, because that's really all we can control. But in the paradoxical mathematics of the universe, this is actually how we create the world too, which makes no sense from a human level. But I want to make sure that we, because I got another show in 28 minutes, but we can go another 15 or so. But I wanted to go back to what I opened with, this description of time, because so much of our discussions, and I'm talking all the way around, have to do with the sensationalism and the programming and this and that. I love the nuts and bolts of, hey, I'm Todd. I'm a human being. I know I'm a soul, but I got to go out here and rock and roll every day. And time is doing some crazy stuff. It has been kind of an evolution over the last year and a half. But I love the conversation you had with this lady. I love the explanation about the 12 hours and the way that you explained it in kind of a it would be in a different way, because you're not really treating even the word time as we would treat it. Right? Can you talk on that?
Yeah. And the thing is, with time is not concrete. Because what is time? It's a measure that we put on to mark or notice sequence of changes, because that's all it is. Okay. So now time, in a sense, is much more flexible than it's ever been. So it can extend and can reduce. But the way we used to refer it to before, what used to be 24 hours, is not even that, is not even half of that anymore in the way we're observing it. There's two things to that. One of the thing is, it shows that you don't have to take as long to do what we were doing before. Second of all, is that by shortening it, we're fine tuning what's really important and only doing that, and actually reevaluating, because every time it gets tighter, we have to look at it. What is really important for me to be putting the time that I have on, rather than, because one of the things we've learned is the more you do in a certain period of time, more efficient you are. But true efficiency, in the way that we understand it now, is putting the time in the very meaningful, transformative things that you do. Yeah. So you're actually specializing and aiming towards what is the most meaningful, most transformative, and much more powerful to bring your essence out. This is one of the things that people have noticed, that with the time shortening, they're not able to do everything they were able to do, and they start to feel overwhelmed, and they start to feel that there's too much to do, right? And that's at first. Then it goes to the next level where they go, I can't do all of this. And then they start dropping things that they thought was important, that is no longer important. And they only keep the stuff that's more meaningful. But that gets refined even further, because the meaningful is what brings forth your true essence? What brings forth your greatest offering as an agreed participant and role player on the planet right now? So all of a sudden, the 10 things you were doing, you may only be doing 2 or 3 or 1 or none, and creating something brand new,
Yeah.
right? And the other thing it also does for us, because many of us have been so accustomed to do everything for everybody,
Yeah.
is that with the shortening of the time, meaning that time is moving quicker, change is moving quicker, and the energies coming in are moving quicker, that now you are more empowering others, and by saying, hey, I'm not going to do this for you, learn how to do it, because you're going to have to do it because I'm not doing it.
Be responsible for yourself.
Yeah, letting people to be more responsible for themselves.
Yeah, that's it. That was what I was looking for. That's what I heard. And basically what it meant to me was just another example of what's occurring in this evolution that's assisting me in being present and prioritizing. And all of this works together, because the more efficient I am, or any of us, the more confidence, the more power. I mean, it all goes together. So that's a really good indicator to me. People say, oh, well, this is new age, or this is that, or this is this. Well, this is a real thing. Like, I just had a conversation with Morgan. Now it's 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning over there. She wakes up. It's important. Is it the old paradigms type of important? No, but this is what we're talking about. So we have a conversation, and I look down at the my phone or whatever, and I said, "Do you realize we've been on the phone for 1 hour and 11 minutes and 11 seconds?" And I first thought, "Oh, that's synchronicity," and then I thought, "Wait a minute." I said, "It feels like about 10 minutes."
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "You're kidding. There's no way." I said, "Yeah." Now I saw that and I went, "Okay, we've all done that before, but this is different." It literally felt like 10 minutes. I'll give you another example. I talked to her on the phone. She's in the car driving, which is going to be, I think, 1 hour and 45 minutes. This is like a week ago. We're talking. And again, next thing you know, she goes, "Oh my God, I couldn't be here. There's a sign." And I said, "Well, check." And so, "Oh my God, I'm here." But and again, it's a characteristic, because it's so hard sometimes to, quote unquote, prove it out, but I think there's more and more stuff that's materializing that's proving it out. And I think that's one of them. So I thought that was a great explanation. That helped me a lot. Somebody in the, Linda, it's been here a long time. So I'm going to ask him, because Franco's from Canada. Romano Didulo. Is that Didulo? Romano Didulo.
I think so, yes.
Okay, so anyway, she had made a comment that she resonated with whatever that was. I know nothing about it, but if you know anything about it, fine. If you don't, whatever. I just wanted to do that out of respect, because she's been a supporter for many years.
Yeah. No, I'm not familiar with what
okay,
she
that's fine. It's
no
biggie. It's no biggie.
It's not coming to mind.
I wanted to ask you something else too.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, there's two things. I got a lot of really good feedback since Sedona about, and I see it in the comments, and I've even seen it on your show, when I pop in, and that is how you are now. Like, I don't want to say this because we're all ETs, but but the humanness, right? And the reason I bring that up is because I think one of the reasons that and not so much that you're effective, because you are, but I'm talking about what's coming, because I keep being shown what's coming, and I'm like going, how's that going to happen? So what I'm trying to say is that you kind of like have your foot in both, right? And I think that's very appealing, because people gravitate. Oh, he's just like us. That's what I hear from people. Mm-hmm. So on that note, I was just curious, because I think people look at you sometimes, or someone like you, and they go, "Oh, he's got everything. Everything's fine. Everything's just peaches and cream," and I know different. So, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but you know what I mean. So, but one of the things that I've been shown, And, we get shown these things and you go, oh, I'm just crazy. But this has been going on for a few years, but it's these things that are coming in terms of what's coming, and I can't explain them like you. I don't get it like that, but I see it. And I'm going, how is that going to happen? So I look at these different platforms and I go, okay, what's working? What's this? What's that? And it's a very intelligence type of connection, not intellect. And so it's more energy based. And I've been shown some things about the level of penetration that the stuff you're doing or the stuff that Solargy does or we do or whatever anyone does, what it really looks like in contrast to our conventional units of measure, views, likes, comments, and such. Have you been, and because you're in that role and because you have this connection that you have, and you're privy to some things, but you're still Franco the human, and I've heard you say it, like, I wonder why there's, So do you have any intel on what we're not seeing in terms of the efforts? And I'm not just talking about me and you, Soulspeaks, I'm talking about each and every person here. Do you have any intel on how effective the effects that we have? Because I have a feeling they're far greater than we might think. But anyway, do you have any intel on how much impact we actually have that we don't see?
Yes, it is quite massive because of the fact that as much as people are, there are people that are watching, a lot of people that are connecting, resonating, turning themselves on by what is being shared, the energy that's carried. But because we're all connected into this field, each one of us are, and with all the other playmates that we play with, are kind of staging a huge platform behind it that, it's like you're creating a channel, an energetic, conscious channel that more people are becoming aware of and are able to participate and jump in whenever they're ready. So they know it's there and it's more in their face in the sense, yeah, I can go there. And you can see a massive explosion once they get to that point where they're saying, okay, we're ready for it. And this is why there's more and more people that are choosing to be ready with it. And so the impact is more than we can imagine. Let me share something. I've been doing this for 37 years, 36 years, 37 years, something like that. And I've been, before that, as a kid, as I received things, I was just not imagining, but I knew it, and I would just make the statement to no one. I was making the statement to the field. I was making the statements. And I remember when I actually started to speak out a little bit more, at first it was a small amount in 85, and then it just kind of grew. And then, so I was doing smaller groups because people weren't interested in the stuff that I was talking about, even though now it goes even deeper than before. But a lot of the statements that we're making, there's so many spiritual people, what we call spiritual people, just to use a name. I've been saying things that I've said 20, 30 plus years ago that I put into the field.
Right.
Now, was I unique to that? At that time, I had access to it. What I said or whatever it is was planted in the field, and people are just picking it up now. And then they're expanding it and plugging it into there. So they're actually just accessing themselves through that. So everything that we're doing is staging this whole new redesign of a world that everybody is available to go whenever they're ready for it.
Right.
In a sense. I don't know if that I've answered what you were.
No, that's yeah. I mean, I can see what you're saying and where you're going with it. And again, I think there'll be more, more obvious things, brought to our attention as a result of the things that we've all been doing this invisible force, this minority or whatever you want to call it. But
and the other thing I wanted to throw in just quickly is, the human part, the part that, I always thought it was, as a young person, I remember over the years, I remember saying, well, I came here to assist humanity and share consciousness and do this, hold a certain energy and whatever else. I don't want to live the human life because that looks like it's pretty sucky to me, at that point, right? It's like too many programs, too emotionally driven, blah, blah, blah. I'm not really interested in all of that. However, I also realized for me to be impactful, I had to have the human experience, that deeper understanding, go through whatever going through. So I've gone through a lot of stuff, okay, and still do, as you are, as many of us are doing. But that is kind of the way. It doesn't mean all have to do it in that same fashion, but that's how you become relatable. That's how you create a connection. It's not, if you're going to be participating in the transformation of human, you have to enter the human and upgrade the human through your own personal experiences. Everybody else is doing the same thing in whatever their experience, but you're not going to do it outside. So it's not like a brother sister soul comes in and says, well, we'll show you how to be human, but they're not human. They're not in a physical form that represents it. They haven't gone through the emotions. They haven't gone through the pains. They haven't gone through the program. They haven't gone through the ego level or whatever it is. They haven't gone through the birthing process of the same way. So they're not the same relatability. And they made it very clear over the years. I remember a person said, we share our perspective, our view, but you guys have to take it and plug it into how it fits into the human reality. Because we're not you. We're not in those bodies. We're not in that same, we're connected, yes, but we're not coming through the channel. We can tell you how it is to be a Pleiadian. We can tell you how it is to be, this or that or whatever it is. And from our viewpoint, because we're one of our brother sister souls, but we're not living your body. We're not living your consciousness. We're not living your movie. So that was the importance of it.
Yeah. Hang on, I'm just blocking a few people. Not a few, too. Which, give them a chance for a few months. And I don't do that much, but I'm just kidding. I'm done with it. We got a show in 11 minutes, but God, there was one other thing you were hitting on. I'm just going to have to delay about 10 minutes, but I can't remember what it is. God, what were you just talking about? Oh, you actually had said something. I think it was you. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But it was along the lines of what you were just saying. And I think it was you. And it was kind of like the dialogue was from our brother, sister, galactic souls with this individual who I think was you, was like, what's wrong with you guys? Why can't you, why can't you, I'm watching Avatar last night, and his name, it was the second time I saw it. The first time I just ripped it. I was like, this is the stupidest movie I've ever seen. Because I wasn't really looking at it from an energetic standpoint. I don't really like Hollywood anyway. I just thought, this is a bunch of money wasted on, anyway. So the female lead, who is, the story, and then the guy comes in, and of course it's really funny because he's all heart, and she names him in her language, which is basically means moron, which was basically because of his level of, ability to feel and see the world as they could. But anyway, so I think it was you, and the dialogue was, why can't you guys not be morons, basically? And it was either you or whoever told me the story was, hey, do you know what it's like to be human? So I'm really glad what you said right now, because I think one of the things I'm really excited about, because I know at some point it's gonna come, because there's too many people that are recovering too many memories, including myself, and that is our level of esteem in the universe. The human may be this and may be that, but there's a lot of respect for us, isn't there?
Oh yeah, there is, and there's a lot of awe in it, because it has a very specific uniqueness to it, and potentiality. So like you said with the avatar, like even when the gentleman took over that avatar and ended up in that world,
Yeah.
He went in as himself at first, it was the old aspect of himself, but he
Right.
didn't relate with the people, the avatars that were there, or the people that were there. They weren't avatars, but he stepped into an avatar. Couldn't relate the preciousness of nature and whatever
Right.
else. And he had to learn all of that, right?
Right. Right.
So this is the thing, is that, many of the souls that come here are not familiar with that, and they have to get familiar with that. But the thing is, what we have available here for us to get the appreciation, we have to really get into the human. We have to really feel every part of it before we can really make an effort or take an opportunity to really upgrade and change any part of it. Because unless you really deeply understand every facet of it, it's not possible. So this is the thing. But anyways, that's how it works. And I know I was reminded several times by my guide, and even when I had to lose 80% of my access at age 4, okay, the reasoning my guide said
Oh,
that
so
you have to live the human. You can keep 20%, which will be already huge, but you need to go through all the experience. You have to understand how it is to be the current human and what the challenges they have, how easy to get lost in the game, how easy it is to get programmed, and look at the difficulties so that you can see through those eyes. And yeah, would I have been able to communicate the same way, or be more relatable as I am now if I didn't go through that? No, because then I would have been like, okay, yeah, this is easy. You could do this, you could do that, whatever it is, because I wouldn't have gone through the same experience. And I've gone through a lot in much concentration. All of us have, to one degree or another, in different ways. That's all.
Right on. Man, and see, here we go again. It's been an hour and 47 minutes, and it feels like literally 25 minutes to me. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know.
No, that's the way time is. When you're engaged a certain way, we shape time. This is the thing. I've done conversations with groups at times, just somewhat informal, and we start talking. And next thing you know, it's like 4.5 hours or 5 hours have gone. It's in the middle of the night, and you're going, I thought we started talking around 9:30. How did it get to like 3 a.m. now?
Right.
You don't even notice it. And sometimes Kimberly goes to me, do you realize it's like 3 o'clock in the morning or 3:30? And I go, really? I thought we were only talking like an hour or two.
He's the Energizer Bunny.
But the point is, we really shape it, because if we're really engaged and we're having fun, we don't relate it the time, and we kind of expand it. So you see that time goes and it's not important in the same way. So
right on. I appreciate those of you, I think it's Zana, and who put up Franco's PayPal. It looks like he's going to be making a move. Let's all pull together and support him and Kimberly.
Well,
and,
thank you.
Absolutely. And maybe we'll come back to that. When do you think you're going to be leaving?
Well, the landlord wants, so we'll have to be out of here either the middle of October or close to the end.
Okay, so there's a little bit of time. I mean,
yeah, there is a little bit of time. It might be sooner. I have to still have the conversation with them, but it's because their kids are starting high school and they want to come back here from Prince Edward Island, right? Yeah. So they may have the kids stay with family until they move over here, because they have to kind of give us 60 days notice, for us to find a place. So we'll have to do whatever. There's a lot. So we're going to try to push through to keep the content going until September. And then we might have to take a break in October, because we'll probably be dismantling a lot of things and moving where we need to move, wherever that's going to be. We have no idea right now, or anything of that nature, or even how it's going to work. But
I think that's the way it works. It requires presence. Our friend Jillian asked if you have a Patreon. For those who don't,
no, it's just PayPal at this point in time. Actually, I think we should do that because I've had that inquiry several times over the last year or so.
You know, a lady suggested it to me last year, and I don't really push it, but just gradually, it's really bailed us out, you know, into the month. You know, it's a few $100s. It fluctuates a little bit, but it was a great idea, and it saved us. I mean, I can't tell you how many times it saved us. I mean, it's you know, comes at the first of the month, so, and that's, you know, that's a tricky path to walk as well. You know, trying to work with abundance and detach from the pressures and the worries and the. But I think we're all making progress here and everywhere.
Yeah.
We're happy to be back on YouTube. We got 160
Right.
people, 160 people in the house just on YouTube, and probably because Franco's here, because I know they don't want to look at me. But Franco, we'll see you again in 2 weeks or sooner.
Yes. Thank
Right.
you. Take
Tell
care.
Kimberly hi and give her a third eye kiss for me, and I love you and thank you for everything you're doing. I can't wait to see you again. And,
Yeah. Look forward to connecting again for sure in person.
That's right. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You guys take care. We'll be back in 13 minutes. We're going to start at 10 after with 3 beautiful goddesses, and we're just going to see what happens.
All right. Cool.
See y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye.